How's it going, everyone? And welcome once again to another episode of Animal Talk Podcast in collaboration with SACA, the South African Animal Keepers Association. My name is Ryne.
And my name is Ayrton. Hey Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Glad to be back on the air again with you.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting time. We have been away for quite a bit, and every time we thought we were going to come back, there was something else that came up as well. So it is really nice to be back, and nice to be doing another episode and having a guest this time as well.
Yeah, very exciting. And yeah, we're really excited to have our next guest, even though it's not really the greatest of information like what happened, but it's good to have the guest with us to explain to us how everything's going there. So for some of you that may not know or haven't been really looking out at the news over the last few weeks, there was quite heavy rains in the Cape. Cango Wildlife Ranch suffered quite a bit of damage due to flooding, and we are very lucky to have Heinz Guder here with us, who is the Assistant Curator at Cango Wildlife Ranch. How's it going, Heinz?
Hey Heinz.
Things are going very well. Under the circumstances, of course, but going very well.
Yeah, under the circumstances, yeah. So how about before we get into the gritty part of everything, first of all, the first thing we do with a new guest is we ask them what their favorite animal is.
All right. So, does it have to be an animal that I've personally worked with? Because my answer is going to slightly change based on that.
No, it does not, because Ayrton's favorite animal is a killer whale, and he hasn't really worked with them.
Haven't worked with them yet.
Fair enough. In that case.
Oh, yet. Yes, sorry, yet.
I'm going to have to lock in the palm cockatoo or the Goliath cockatoo, that heavy metal looking bird, as a favorite for me.
Yeah, the weird beak cockatoo.
That's the one. Yeah, the little drummer, parrot.
Exactly. That's cool. I like that. Alrighty, and maybe for the listeners, if we could maybe just have you tell them exactly who you are and what you do at Cango.
All right, sweet. So, I'm the assistant curator at Cango. I've been there going on about 6 years now. Initially started as a student over there. At the moment, the sections that I work with would be the birds and the reptiles. And as an assistant curator, it's basically oversight of enclosures, animal welfare. Yeah, that's essentially a very layman's summary of what goes on there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, reason why we got you on, and Ed and I will probably shoot a couple of questions at you about what's happened at Cango. Firstly, what I can say is that just watching some of the footage and what you guys did to prepare for it is absolutely amazing. So, give us a little bit of a rundown of what happened in the preparation for the extremely bad weather.
All right. Well, thank goodness for weather forecasts, first of all. I can't imagine if this was 50, 60 years ago and this just happened out of nowhere, how prepared everyone would have been at that point. But see, about a day and a half before the time we started getting enclosures sort of prepped for moving the animals to. About 2 years, about 2024, we had a pretty hectic flood as well. So I think everyone had some residual trauma from that. Sort of, let's have that not be as bad as it was this time around. So crates were already prepared, labeled for each animal so that we know this crate is going to be going for this animal. This enclosure is where this one animal is going to be moved to, should that river come on down. In which order are we going to be moving them as well? So we sort of prioritized which ones are closest to the river. That way we don't have a situation where everyone's just running around looking for crates, and now there's no crate big enough for this animal because someone else is using it to evacuate a completely different animal unrelated to the direct problem at this point. And then there was sort of a initial plan of we will move these few animals that are closest to the river and probably nothing more, but also let's maybe have a backup plan for if in case this flood is way worse than the one before, and then an absolute worst case scenario plan in case even that isn't enough. So we ended up landing somewhere between the middle and the worst case scenario. as it turns out, the flood was way worse than, I believe this might have been the worst one we've had. They're saying it is slightly worse than the 96 flood as well, which I wasn't sentient for that one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've also, like Ryan mentioned, I've been watching just, your updates that you guys have been posting. And I think, first of all, like, I think all of us that work in the industry, we've all said it, like, you guys handle it, I think, the best way that you could. And you seem so prepared for every case, which I think you have to be, because when it comes to animals, there's nothing more you can do than actually just be overly prepared for every scenario. But maybe the question that I had is, since you kind of got the warning and you knew what was potentially coming your way, how much time did you guys actually have to, get all the animals out? And then kind of what animals or enclosures in particular were the ones that were most affected?
So the initial move, the ones that we, were preparing to move first, would have been all the cheetah enclosures, as especially two of the camps are right next to where the river would come up first. So thankfully, when we sort of got the markers on the river, so we would set various like visual markers basically. So if it hits this point, we need to start moving these animals, and then if it moves past this point over here, not necessarily always just specific like a flag or something like that. Sometimes it could just be this tree that's growing next to the river. If that branch of it is below the water, then it's time to move these animals. So we initially started with the cheetahs and the caracal. There's also the farmyard, which has more like rural animals like sheep and some chickens and some rabbits in there as well. Those ones were thankfully very easy to move. The cheetahs crates were already thankfully ready for all of those. So each of those animals moved into the crates. Thankfully, crate training was already part of the thing, and following the 2024 flood was heavily emphasized as well, as the last thing we want to do is run around trying to catch animals that, could just be willingly moving into a crate, making this whole process a lot easier. After that, thankfully, between each move, there were on occasion 1 to 2 hours of, now we just wait and hope the level doesn't rise anymore, followed by, oh no, it's rising a little bit more. Let's move on to the next phase.
Yeah, that sounds
That's crazy.
It was quite something.
I'm just impressed with your guys' like setup, like having everything so ready. We know you just said 2004 you had a recent one, but here in South Africa we don't really have the mindset of natural disasters and preparing for them, and I don't think I've worked in a facility yet that is that prepared for a natural disaster. We all think we're prepared in our minds, but it sounds like you guys were really, really well prepared, labeling crates, knowing exactly at what points to move which animals and where to take them. I take my hat off to you guys. That was absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say.
Yeah, and I think, now, like, looking back, I mean, I know, like Ryan mentioned, in South Africa, we don't really ever have to think about these natural disasters. I think overseas, they generally always have that in the back of their head, because that's what occurs in their regions. I kind of had a good chuckle today because I thought, at the aquarium, we never really plan for a flood coming in from the outside, but maybe we should be planning for a flood from the inside out. So just really interesting to have to put that like on your everyday kind of to-do list. I don't know how I would myself put, like, where do you start? There's so much to think about. And I mean, I've visited your guys' facility, and it's a beautiful facility, and you've got so many different species and animals that you have to look after. And just being in that situation, I wouldn't really know where to start. Probably take my go for the favorite ones first. So I'm glad you guys don't have any palm cockatoos, because they would have been loaded up first.
There's Heinz running for the cockatoos. I'm coming!
I think maybe something we should address also on the podcast, and I know that Cango's put out multiple posts, and whenever I see it, I always feel really sorry for you guys. But maybe do you want to just address, we know that you do have crocodiles at your facility, and you guys have really been quite salty with some of the reels, which has been very entertaining to watch. But there's been this discussion or this kind of myth that's been going around that crocodiles escaped. And I think that's what everybody thinks whenever there's a flood. That's, animals that live in that river aquatic environment, that's kind of, they think worst case scenario, and they think, oh, this thing is now out there. So do you want to maybe just tell us, do you have all your crocodiles still? I know the answer, but for our listeners, maybe you can elaborate for them.
I think as many statements as possible is needed here. Yes, all the crocodiles are in fact in the enclosures. Thankfully, none of them needed to be moved either, which is ideal, as especially with the jumping jaws enclosure. We've got 8 Nile crocodiles in there, and if the water level is also rising in such a situation, that would be quite the disaster. But thankfully, those are a little bit further away from the river, so all the crocs are very much accounted for.
Fantastic.
If everyone's there, that's
Oh, yes. Yeah, the biggest issue the flood made for the crocodiles was mostly with regards to the water raised to such a level where the heat pumps of the crocodile enclosures became submerged in water as well. So we had, I believe they're all functional now again. But I think we had 1 or 2 days when the water was at its worst, where the pumps were completely submerged by the really high river at this point. So water temperature was a bigger issue than actually missing the crocodiles.
Wow, yeah, you don't think about that, actually. That's an important note.
Oh, yeah.
It's that fun thing of like electricity and water not really mixing. It's a very very big problem. And in terms of electricity, do you guys have power now, or did you lose power to the whole facility?
Thankfully, yeah, power is good. We had some electrical damage in some of the enclosures, the bird aviary being one of them, where a lot of the electric systems were completely submerged in water. The pump station, sadly, where all the biofilters there's a large water body in the lemur enclosure, as well as the cage diving crocodile exhibit also has a biofilter. That area ended up being completely submerged in water, so the power was lost in some areas. But everything's powered up and functional at the moment, and thankfully there is also a backup generator on site should the entire thing go out. But at the moment, just regular power is doing its job.
Awesome. And the damage-wise, I know there's quite a bit closer to the river. There's obviously a lot of damage. I mean, you've got that wall there, but it came right over the wall. So, in relation to the damage, how far are you with repairing damage and moving animals around?
So we've managed to bring several of the animals back. The lemurs are thankfully back in their enclosure now. The water level did raise to a point where there's sort of a not an artificial river in the enclosure that sort of acts as a natural barrier to the outside. So it hit a point where the water level was so high in the enclosure that you could no longer see the difference between the ground level and then the artificial river in the enclosure. So once that dropped to a more reasonable level, the lemurs were able to thankfully move back out. The tiger enclosure is destroyed. Fence is completely down towards sort of the back service area. The walkway towards the lion and night quarters was also completely demolished. I think there was 5 tarpaulins in total that's like connected to the fencing that ended up getting knocked over. The flood wall is very much no longer there. That one is going to require a lot of work to do. The plan at the moment to at least allow the lemurs, so there are 2 lemur exhibits that might be confusing for anyone listening. The flood wall will probably erect at least a temporary barrier over there so that the lemurs can at least move on to the island part of the exhibit. But the flamingos might be staying in their now temporary enclosure, which was the wastelands, which was a vulture enclosure at some point. They will probably be staying there for quite some time until an actual wall can be built again. So let's see, we've got I think the black and white ruffed lemurs are still in the animal hospital or care center facility. The cheetahs are all very much still on the Gilbride and Freyers Reserve, which is across the road. So thankfully, there are some enclosures where we can keep those guys over there. The younger cheetah cubs are in their exhibit already, at least, as well as the caracal is an A exhibit, but not the original one, as that one is still quite damaged. The leopard enclosure and the lion enclosure, I believe, apart from the tar poles, the electrics is also shot in there, or the electric fencing. So those guys are hanging out in their night houses at the moment.
Wow, that's quite an extensive damage. And you've got those big walkways across. Any damage to those poles that are going down?
Thankfully not. 2 years ago, in the 2024 flood, the walkway was damaged quite badly. Right. So it's been reinforced really heavily. We were actually on the catwalk during the roughest part of the flood. I think that was about between 10 to 11 o'clock at night, when the water was at its highest, to sort of make the call of, do we move the big cats or not, as that was the part of the plan that everyone was stressing the most about. So it held strong.
Sure, thank goodness.
Sure.
Yeah, crazy to listen in and hear all of that. So I'm guessing the way you said it now, that the big cats, as in sort of the tigers, leopard, lion, they're just in their night rooms. They weren't needed to be shifted off property.
The tiger eventually did need to be shifted, but
Right.
The lions and leopard thankfully did not. Their night quarters are slightly higher. The leopard enclosure thankfully is built with 2 night houses. So you've got the lower night house, which is quite close to the river, and then a higher one, which I think it was built later, but we only really use that one when we have an oncoming flood type situation. So she was already moved up there. So thankfully she had a lot of dry space still.
Sure, that's, I think, listening to this also just really important to stress for, animal keepers, just how important it is that, your animals are used to going into their night rooms, or they're crate trained, because as I'm sure you've heard from this episode already, just how important it is that, the animals are willing to cooperate with you in those stressful situations, because every minute counts when you're trying to work across a facility to make a plan or try evacuate animals. So I think, just to stress again, like, a great job that you guys did and your team did. I think also at this point, if hopefully our listeners are wondering what they can do to help. So is there anything that our listeners can do to help you guys? I know there is a funding page that you guys have started. Do you want to maybe just tell them how they can find this, where they can go, and if there's anything that the facility currently needs?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So, funding definitely is a big help over here, as I think the total budget is close to 2.5 million in terms of damages. So it's a bit of a steep one. As for where you can find this, it's pretty much in all of the social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram. I believe even the TikTok channel should have links to it over there. The public has been a really big help as well. They pulled in a sort of a campaign to let public volunteers come and help, and the turnout was quite amazing. So even physical labor was a really, really big help.
Okay, great. So that's awesome. What we'll do is we will add that information at the description of this episode. It'll be on our social medias as well. So we'll put that out. So if anybody wants to get involved or send donations, you can go to those links as well. Heinz, the ranch is open to the public, correct?
Yes, with a slight asterisk next to that. Yes.
Yes, of course.
It is somewhat open. So we're doing as part of the fundraising for this situation, we're doing a disaster tour system where people can come in and have a look at this disaster that's going on. So some of the animals are on display, and that part is completely functional, but not all of the animals that you would normally see if you were to go on a regular tour is on display. But to be honest, it's quite interesting just to see this sheer spectacle of a disaster as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it was April 2021. Here in KZN, we had, or no, it was 2022. We had an extremely bad flood where we were on the south coast, and there was a river. We're living on a hill, and there was a river underneath flowing around that hill and going out towards the sea. And during that flood, when we looked down, the river just took up the entire area. There was no ground. You could just see hills and water, and rolling in the water were these huge, massive trees just rolling. Just crazy, the amount of force that water has. We forget how powerful nature can be when it comes to natural disasters.
True.
So I can just imagine those fences and poles and sort of flood wall just being smashed up by a lot of debris that's coming down the river as well.
Oh yeah. That I think in the enclosures there are several like large logs, sort of as display pieces as well, and it picked them right up as well. Fencing on the enclosure as well. Between a lot of the carnivore camps, there is sort of like wooden pallet fencing attached to the wire of the fence to prevent them from seeing each other, to like avoid unnecessary stress. Like you don't want the cheetahs just having a view of the leopard the entire day. And an unfortunate part of this is that debris tends to get stuck on these wooden pallets in between, and that causes the water to really push against it, making it a lot easier to pull the whole fence down. Thankfully, most of them were attached in such a way where it sort of starts lifting at the bottom to allow the water to begin passing through, so that the whole enclosure doesn't just come down.
Yeah, that's a good plan for sure. Yeah. Wow, just crazy. Well, I think it's been really fantastic chatting to you and hearing about the situation that you guys are in, and we're all thinking of you, and we hope that everything can get back to normal as soon as possible. For our listeners, again, if you are wanting to help Cango Wildlife Ranch, there'll be information in the description as well as on all of our social media platforms. So please click on there and have a look and see what you can do to assist. All the help that they can get is definitely appreciated. Also, if you want to know anything about SACA, which is the South African Animal Keepers Association, please feel free to also go onto our social media. Also, at the bottom of this description, there will also be some information about that. And again, we'd also like to thank eRadio for allowing us to be on their radio station on Saturdays at 10 a.m. But from myself, as I always say, animals are our passion.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and remember that our quality of care is their quality of life. Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Shoot a couple of messages. There we go. See, there's the first blooper. Shoot a couple of... Let me start again.
What you shooting?
Shoot a couple of quick... Shush! You made it worse.
This is fun.
Bring myself towards myself. Okay.